have a quorum.
Thank you. Well, welcome, guests. Good to see you this evening. As we take this agenda. Any changes? I make a motion that we accept it.
Second.
There you go. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Passed. All in favor? Aye. Approval of minutes. Minutes from okay.
Make a motion to approve the minute.
Okay. Discussion, any corrections? Anybody have anything they want to do to these minutes? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Jennifer abstained. She wasn't here. Passed. Treasurer's report.
Make a motion to accept the report and the audit. Second. Second. Oh, you did? I'm sorry. I thought you did. I'm not here today.
Okay, I guess we'll.
Taking on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. And you want to say something about the trust board financials?
Just for anybody that wasn't at the trust board meeting last week, we have our total trust board monies right now is a little over $4 million. We increased a little over $60,000 between last month's meeting and this one. So it's, thank goodness, the market's up, and hopefully we'll keep it there.
Okay, we have the control manager's report in the packet and along with the other department reports. Make a motion that we receive these reports as made. Do it all of you, all of one packet, yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept these reports from the departments and the manager. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. This makes it just faster. I was reading the reports, and one of the things that several people mentioned was the meeting that we had, the special dedication service, open house, and ribbon cutting, and everybody made a lot of comments. It was a success, which is good.
Chief, in Bryce's report, it states about an increase in the amount for the consultations. Does approving his report give our consent to do that? Or do we need to?
I would think we need to do that separately.
All right, I will move to approve a 25% increase in our consultation fees, which will increase the rate to $250 per consultation.
Okay, anybody discussion?
Question.
Yes.
Do we have any idea what other tribes are
Up to $600.
up to 600?
Is that per consultation or per hour?
May I comment, please?
Yes, yes.
Delaware Nation is charging by the hour. We are charging per consultation. So our rates, even though we're raising them a little bit, they're below what Delaware Nation is charging. Nonetheless, we are raising ours to be a little more commensurate to what other tribes are charging in general, based on a conversation I had with Bryce, but we're still below the median, I would say.
Because a lot of us are charging 300.
Well, in that case, do we want to increase it more than the 250?
I think he thought that 250, we've discussed this from time to time about increasing it, and we just haven't done it. I think 250 is fair. If he thinks it's fair, I think it's fair.
Could that motion be amended to require his increases, or the 25% increase, to go into a land management fund to help with our cemeteries?
Doesn't he turn the money over to the tribe? I mean, besides his part?
It just goes into this committee, I guess. Yes, Curtis. How does this work? It's in that report. It's
Chad, I
Push the button.
Assistant Chief Brooks, whoa. While I respect and understand, I think, where you're going with this, that money goes into an already established Historic Preservation Office fund. When and if we need to dip into that, we can do a separate council action or approval, depending on how much money we're talking about, to dedicate any additional revenue that comes into the Historic Preservation Fund for such purposes as cemeteries, cultural preservation, or anything else. I would respectfully ask that you consider leaving it the way it is and allowing it to go into a Historic Preservation Fund, which is definitely a line item in your financials.
it shows right here that he made $6,600 this month, or month of April, and which was with only almost 2,900 for the expenses.
That was 2,900 over cost of operation. So to
That was
speak.
the total expenditures for that same period of that 6,600 he made.
I think some of the money in that expenditure went toward the cemetery. It also went into purchasing a new computer for Greg. One or two other expenses related to the Historic Preservation Office.
He has made well, I can't call it a donation, but he has helped on the revamping of, say, the Reynolds Cemetery.
Yes, sir.
That's, no,
What did he contribute to that one?
Ma'am, I'll have to go back and break down what your expenditures.
Okay, because I was just looking at the trust board report from last week, and what we spent, was that reimbursed? Was that
Out of trust?
To what was in this, the land management?
There were funds out of land management which were
Right.
spent on that cemetery
Right.
restoration.
Right.
I would have to go back was charged to land management and what was charged to historic preservation. It's my understanding, and I seem to recall, talking with accounting and saying, so much out of this fund, so much out of this fund. Because we ran up total of about $7,000 in charges on getting that cemetery to the point where it is, and we still have work to do. Now, I'm not able to recite to you exactly how the breakdown went. I will make a point to do that in a report to both the council and the trust board, because I know it was raised last week as to whether or not, or how much money was spent on the cemetery, and was it authorized, or was it even known by the trust board? Well, the answer is yes, you trust board members had to sign off on the paperwork anyway. But that's what that historic preservation fund, which is a sizable amount of money, can and should be dedicated toward these types of expenses. I will go back again, Chief, and ask for accounting to help me put together a dollar-by-dollar reckoning of what we charged that Leno Cemetery expense to. I will go back and get that presented to the council. It'll just have to be, maybe by next week I'll have something.
Because I know Bryce had come to us and said that we could use some of the historic money for cemeteries.
And there is still additional work to do on those gravestones, but that's something we're just going to have to get a group of people together and go back and look it over and start making a plan for the next phase.
Right.
But at least it's all clear, and it's ready for people to walk around and see what we have left.
The reason I brought up the possibility of amending it is, had been discussed earlier today, if people vote to change the percentages, it's going to increase culture preservation up to 10% instead of 5%. But the question has been brought up, will cultural preservation take on the functions of land management? And I see in our financials here that land management budget for this year, which is the calendar year, we're 5 months into that calendar year. Our total budget was $10,378, and we've already spent $9,134 as of the end date. Yeah. So that was my only concern.
Well, and 8,800 of it was on the cemetery. I don't see anything in here that shows that historical preservation spent anything on culture, according to this report. It has cultural activities, it has 0. I don't know what it was. Does it say anything about radio?
Well, it should have said land management.
Well, I don't see anything in the fall under.
Again, we'll have to go back and look at all of the expenditures one by one, see how they were coded, and how not only the expense for this one Leno Cemetery, but other expenses that the tribe has to take on to take care of our property here, that we charge it to. There's, in my opinion, and I believe that the trust board agrees, that's what the money is for. Once that's spent down on legitimate expenses, then the tribe picks up the rest. We continue to look for and hope for additional sources of funding to take care of the land management expenses of taking care of our campuses. We've got stuff we just hit up in Caney. We've got some flooding or some pooling of water right outside the back door at Caney we've got to put some effort into. So these are ongoing expenses. But I will go back and ask for a dollar-for-dollar accounting of the cemetery and how it's broken.
I think Annette was saying that she
cemeteries, very little of it has gone to take care of the properties here. Because the cemeteries over the years have been focused on
And when the guys are cleaning, mowing, and all of that, all the cemeteries, that gets charged to land management too. So, and they're in the season right now. Again, I'm unable to recite to you by memory how we've been spending this money, but I will get with Gene and accounting and go back and come up with a special report.
There's nothing on here, Bruce.
All right.
Unless it's under travel or computer maintenance or maybe other contractual, maybe under other contractual expenses. It was $2,800 spent actually this year, and that going to be spent over in March or February or January, and you may be right, it was under contractual expenses for that, for the Barnes tree trimming.
Okay, and there's been no further action now on that cemetery until what happened right up until powwow time. So we've not done anything else yet, but it's been cleared, it's been massively sprayed for ticks and everything, and it's at a point where we can walk around and go to phase 2, which is gravestone restoration. That's a project for a little bit later.
Okay. Thank you.
Did we vote on the motion to approve the fees?
Okay.
Jennifer, who seconded? Was that Jan? We voted on it.
Okay, so we have a motion second on the floor to approve increase from 200 to 250 for the historic consultations. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passed, all in favor. Okay, moving on to citizen business. Sorry. I think Leslie has a report for us on the enrollment backlog that we discussed last month.
One of the things that we learned last week at the training was how to make Progeny pull up its own numbers so that we can track everything we've done. So I went through today, and in the last month we've done 148 updates, 92 cards, which I don't think is actually reflective. That printer will jam, the card printer will jam, so every time I hit print and then have to cancel it, it's recounting it. So I don't think 92 is actually reflective of how many cards I sent out, but that's what Progeny counted. 67 affidavits of membership, which does all those Cobell calls. Now they're wanting these affidavits of membership. You have to have something signed from your tribe saying you're a member. 3 BIA 4432 forms and 59 profile reports. The profile reports we either give to social services or that's what Chris prints when he does a blue card. 59.
What was the 32?
3 BIA 4432s. Those are in your preference. So, and I brought some of the sample reports so you can see those. The backlog is still at 103. That's including the 31 that we enrolled last month. So we haven't got very many in this month. The office being in turmoil. I think only 20 were entered. 20 new were entered, but 148 were updated. So my plan for this month is just stop scanning documents. I just want to get the people in, and we can go back later and scan everything in. That hasn't been done in the past anyway. It all goes in the file.
What do you mean scanning? Where are the scans going?
They go into Progeny, so that when you pull up the record, they,
Kind of like
it's an electronic file. So, and that's what each time is scanning each page in. So I'm going to stop doing that, just focus on enter the information. We can go back later if we we have more help or, and do those scanning of documents, so. Would like to see these sample reports.
These are the new forms that have been made up, is that what you're saying? These are all the ones that are correct,
The way to go further.
So your training last week was very helpful.
A lot. Reports and security features so that we do have more people come in, we can lock them out in certain areas of the class, so they can't change their certain things. And we feel the importance. Yes, we were.
When we get to daycare, we've got,
Got that.
And the kitchen's gone, the hood and the sink island.
So what are we doing instead of storing it for a house that needs it or selling it or what? The microwave and the refrigerator went in the laundry room. Okay, yeah, you have those, yeah, refrigerator.
So the range and the hood and the cabinet, I don't know, Bruce.
I think it's in storage right now, and we're looking at moving it up to Caney. If it'll fit in Caney.
Caney that needs a stove.
Huh?
So you're moving it to Caney to use it or to store it?
There's just a spot for a stove and Caney and there's stove.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
okay.
the kitchen
That
up there.
makes sense. All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
How about the refrigerator?
It stayed there, didn't it?
The refrigerator is now in the laundry room.
Oh, okay. Got laundry room. Well, there's a lot of laundry room, guys. That makes sense. Very smart.
Okay.
And you expect a lot more progress
Yes.
by next month?
Yes. On that backlog that's home for this one. Everybody put stuff in
How
the back.
exciting. It's great, great. We appreciate it.
This is a contract with the tribal judge, tribal child support program. We were remiss in not getting this done. We've done, so we did a full vote on it. And do we need to vote it into the minutes?
Just read it in.
Oh, yeah.
So do we want to read the entire?
No, we can say that.
As Chief said, this is due to the last whereas, a goal of the Tribal Child Support Enforcement Program is to keep cases out of court. However, in the event of a court case, Judge Donald Mason Jr. has agreed he will not settle cases which require interpretation of tribal child support enforcement codes. He is going to be writing those, so he's recusing himself from any here. Now therefore be it resolved, the Delaware Tribe Council has selected Judge Donald Mason Jr. as a contract attorney for the Child Support Enforcement Program to assist in development of the program policies and codes due to his knowledge, interest, qualifications, and experience. The poll vote was taken on May 30th, and all the council voted yes.
resolutions here. Resolution 2013-28 is one, we have a sponsor on here, Annette Ketchum. What we needed to do was amend the Membership Act. We needed to change Section 13, and we needed to change Section 14. So it had to do with,
This doesn't sound like, I thought we were moving them, not changing anything, we were just moving them to a different number. If I understood it.
you know, it's down here. Do you have that? That's where I'm looking at. Let me see.
Okay, we're changing, we're amending the act to change the application fee for the lost cars, updated cars from section 14 to section, putting 13 and 14, and then section 3 was an emergency. I guess because it was an
We're just
emergency.
moving information around, it's not really changing anything, we're just putting them in a
It's
more
rearranging
appropriate
the
place.
Well, my little trial.
And then moving section 12 to section 13 to make room for the removal of
I'm sorry, did we ratify the full vote, or did we have to read it into the minutes? Just read it into the minutes? Or is it?
Yeah, it might be a good idea to ratify it. I move to accept the full vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve, to ratify the poll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed all in favor.
We want to vote on the amendment, or the resolution to amend the Membership Act.
So, yeah, I make a motion to pass resolution 2013-28 to move section 13 and 14 and 14 and 15.
Okay, we have a motion second on the floor. This is a little bit of housekeeping. Curtis?
I would just simply ask, since this is being recorded and we will put it on the website, again, just to clarify, or summarize what it is so that our viewers can understand what motion you're passing with regards to the enrollment of our tribal membership. Even if it's routine housekeeping, it would be a good measure to add something to your comments.
Decide to say we
Right,
don't
so
here.
basically this resolution gives a provision for ineligible tribal member removal procedures in a case where inappropriate documents were used to originally to allow for a membership to be approved. This is a way to go back and revoke that membership, but it also gives the due process to the person whom membership rights have been revoked so that they have an appeal method, so to speak. This could be used, for instance, if someone had claimed Mary Smith as their ancestor, but then it turned out that Mary Smith wasn't actually on our base roll.
Or fraudulently presented documents also. But
Correct.
well stated.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed. All in favor? There you go. So we have we're trying to establish a new department, and that's called the Department of Education. And this is a resolution that addresses that. It's 2013-30. So we have Jana Roth is going to write this for us. Would you want to comment on this?
Sorry, so is this section 12 now, the tribal, ineligible tribal membership removal, or is it 13? Change 12 to 13.
I think it's 13. 12 was changed to 13. 13 was the 14, and 14 was the 15.
And the new one is 12.
So this new one is 12?
I think it's 13.
Okay.
12 to 13.
No, I'm just trying to do it for a minute. I don't know what to put in a minute.
I think it's 12.
Change 12, clarification to 13, eligible membership.
So it says change section 12, clarification of existing tribal role to section 13, and to give ineligible tribal membership removal procedures.
So this resolution adds section 13, ineligible tribal membership removal procedures.
Well, number 12 changes to 13.
So this should be 12.
Okay.
We know we're including it. Where?
I don't know, that's just what it says on the top of this act. I didn't write it.
It is funny.
I didn't write it.
Okay.
Sorry, Shannon.
Shannon.
On the Department of Education,
The
the reason why we were asking for a resolution to establish a Department of Education is because tomorrow the federal government will release a grant to establish a charter school, and I've called and spoke with the feds, and tribes are eligible for a charter school, so we're going to apply for that grant. It's a planning grant. The charter school wouldn't start, I think it's between 1 and 3 years. So it would just be allow us to go ahead and apply for that grant.
Okay.
And I was going to complete it since my background is education.
This is the start of our
education department.
Thank you.
Move to approve resolution 2013-30.
Okay, we have a motion, second on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed, all in favor? Why was that so easy? Those others are so hard.
It's just brand new.
You know, there's another one in there.
Chief Machoke, may I be recognized to address the council regarding the action you just took?
First of all, I want to thank you and applaud you for approving this resolution to create a Department of Education. Now comes the challenge, and I look over to the table to Chet Brooks and Verna Crawford to help lead the way where the Education Committee under the Trust Board works with the tribal administration to bring those funds and our efforts to serve our tribal members through educational support, to bring everything together. I know recently at your trust board meeting last week, you brought Nikki Michael on board as an appointed trust board member and actually made her the chair of the education committee. I would ask that you guide and direct and support her to work with our tribal administration, and probably Jana Roth is going to be taking the lead on that. I really feel like we should work together and remember that all of the funds and everything that we're going to do are going to be helping our people out there. So I hope, right now, what I see is kind of what they call in Congress an unfunded mandate. We're going to create a Department of Education, but how are we going to fund it other than tell Jana to go write a grant? But we do have education funds, and we, as the tribal administration, our accounting department, we stand ready to support what the trust board is doing on the education side, but what the trust board is doing on the education side should support the establishment of a tribally controlled Department of Education.
Yes, Curtis, we discussed that, and Chet and I both will continue on the Education Committee to offer guidance. And we've been discussing just what you have in ways that we can establish and create and further the education of our people and come up with projects that we can get funding for. It's unlimited what we can do, and we will all work together on that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, we expect you to help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, we were only supposed to have two resolutions and they were combining.
Yeah, but this is what we didn't talk about. This is actually the third.
Right, this is, we were receiving this and this, so we put that together. And they were, the chief financial officer and human resources.
Oh, no,
I know what these two are.
Okay, and that one we need to hold that.
Okay, so,
For the information, we are holding consideration of Resolution 2013-31 because we had a difference in what we discussed and what was written in it, so we're holding that one until later. We have two.
so it's combining, putting these people under chief.
This is to amend the Delaware Tribal Organizational Chart, establishing an emergency and establish an effective date. Being enacted by the Tribal Council of the Delaware Tribe of Indians. Section 1, the Chief Financial Officer of the Delaware Tribe of Indians will report and fall under the direct supervision of the Chief of the Delaware Tribe of Indians. Section 2, the Chief Director of the Department of Human Resources of the Delaware Tribe of Indians report and fall under the direct supervision of the Chief of the Delaware Tribe. And this bill will be effective upon the signature of the Chief. The background for this, the Chief Operation Officer, or the Financial Operation Officer, and the Human Resources Department, we felt should be under the answer to the Chief rather than our Tribal Operational Manager, just to keep everybody from having conflicts. And we felt that this was the way to do that. And I will move through Resolution 2013-32.
Second. Okay, so we have motion on the floor. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passed, all in favor.
Okay, and Resolution 2013-33, section is to amend the Code Book of the Delaware Tribe of Indians, be it enacted by the Tribal Council of the Delaware Tribe of Indians, Section 1, to rescind Title 25, Tribal Manager, from the Code Book of the Delaware Tribe of Indians, and any resolutions creating and/or approving documents contained within said Title 25. Section 2, rescinding personnel policies and procedures approved on June 16, 1983, contained in Title 19 of the Code Book of Delaware Tribe of Indians, and any resolutions creating and/or approving said document. Section 3, declaration of emergency and effective date. This bill is effective upon the signature of the chief. The consideration for this is that all personnel and our personnel policies should be policies, not laws. And that's why we're removing them from the code book.
If you look at the code book, if you look at the code book from 1983, it has a job description for a tribal business manager. It mandates that that person will be paid $1,000 a month, and here's their job duties. So obviously it wasn't very practical for the time immemorial. And it's just been on the books since then. So that's what we're working on right now, is going through the code book and doing this housekeeping.
Would you make a motion to?
I'll second on the one yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and second on the floor to do this little bit of housekeeping. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passed. All in favor? That's fine, it's just Yes, we have, the last one is 2013-34, and it is our tribal membership in the NCAI for the mid-year. This is to include the chief, Aaron Crawford, and Councilman Jennifer Pachoni.
Is to send you to this.
So,
This resolution is required by National Congress for the tribe to designate who the designated representative is and the alternates. And because we have different names than on the last resolution, it was necessary to pass a new one. So you have to be recognized to speak. And if you just send anybody walk up the street, they won't. Okay.
credential you.
Right. As representing the tribe, because each tribe, according to their population, has a certain number of votes, and those votes are controlled by the delegate. They do have individual members, and individual members may vote, but the major voting is by the tribe. And I'll move to approve.
Do you want to, it doesn't benefit us in any way, but because our names are on it, should we abstain, or do you?
I think it's for, since it's not for monetary gain, and it's just being a representative, I think anybody can vote on it.
So I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, so.
No, sorry.
She seconded before we did the first one.
Yes. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. All in favor? So we are, I think, I'd like to introduce our new attorney. We hired a new old attorney.
Revamping.
She was our attorney many years ago, and we have, she has found time to work for us again. So, I'd like to introduce you to Carrie Dennis and Claire.
What was her first name? Gina Carrigan. I've got another word on there.
Claire. Summer Symposium. We had our judges go, and I think that maybe our chief judge is going to make a report.
Yeah, I'll give a report. Don Mason.
Well, there we
There you go.
Yes, the Sovereignty Symposium was last week. It was very productive. As the name might suggest, the whole two-day event is pretty much dedicated to Indian nations flexing their governmental muscle and building better, stronger, more independent governments. Also building government-to-government relationships with like the state government agencies, even county governments and city governments. One big aspect of the symposium this year in regards to that was money for law enforcement. There is more money coming our way for law enforcement, violence against women, and some other stuff. It looks like there may be some more as well, despite sequestration. So this is something that looks good, and with that, local law enforcement agencies like OSBI, the county sheriff's offices, the DAs, U.S. Attorney's Office, they've figured out that that is a revenue source for us, and so they want to partner with us to help out with crime in Indian country. I haven't seen a whole lot of exact definitions or examples of where they would like to work together. I know the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tulsa has really reached out to the Indian tribes, especially with the Violence Against Women Act stuff, which I think is really good. And then there's also been some issues. I talked to one assistant U.S. attorney about 3 or 4 months ago, and he also wanted to look into possible white-collar crime in Indian country, particularly with contracting and perhaps gaming. So it's interesting to see that going on. Economic development was a big deal. What seemed to be interesting was power generation, building power plants and building windmills. Former Governor David Walters was there all day, I think the first day, and gave a presentation. Actually, he gave two. One was about a power plant that's actually in the planning stage, the Cherokees, and his company, Walters Power International, and these negotiations to build a power generating plant somewhere down on the Kerr Navigation Channel in Sequoia County. So it sounds really interesting. And then another one is they're actually doing a wind farm up in Osage County. Right now they're encountering some resistance, some EPA issues because of the wildlife and some political backlash. But it looks like it's still going to happen, and these projects are moving forward, and these are alternative revenue streams for Indian tribes besides gaming and the other stuff that we've traditionally been doing. It was really interesting. With that, the banks from back east were there again. I noticed that they are going to these events more and more. They're seeing bankers from the East Coast and the West Coast showing up, and they're wanting to actually engage with the Indian tribes and do projects, economic development projects. ICWA. ICWA was a big deal again this year because of the case that we're very familiar with. People were talking about it. No decision yet. But also that led to the other, with ICWA and the case that we know about, we were also talking about adoptions and how Indian adoptions, there needs to be some people just need to clean up their act. What they need to do is make sure that when they're doing the adoptions that they're giving proper notice, giving due process, having the tribes let them have some due process themselves in this process, like ICWA guarantees. So that was good. I have something for you guys. At one of these seminars I went to, it was about criminal law in Indian country. And again, the feds and local law enforcement are interested in doing more criminal law type projects with the tribes. For us, of course, we need to develop a working court system and we'll also have to struggle with what is jurisdiction and things of that nature. As we do more economic development projects, we'll need to have a police department to police those properties. And if someone does something wrong on those properties, then we can enforce a criminal code eventually of our own. And we can do that in the court and have court costs and fines and all that good stuff. So that's much later down the road, but I can see that happening. It is coming. So I applaud the idea of creating a Department of Education. Jana Roth is doing some good stuff with that. As I told her, the Oklahoma Department of Education, every quarter they'd have a seminar, which is free of charge, for anyone who's interested in getting training as to how to start, open, and run a charter school. So this is something to think about, not only for her, but any council member or anyone else who may be interested in that. Chief Curtis talked about funding for a Department of Education. About a month or two ago, we were sitting around the table with Libby Gray and some other people, and Councilor Chet Brooks came in, and the funding issue came up, and Chet happened to stumble across, I think, a very good idea, which is I think that the trust board, the education people, or anyone interested on the trust board, and also the council and education folks have a summit, and I think Chet's idea of having an education summit with the trust board is a good idea, especially as we look forward with education. So, let's see if I'm forgetting anything here. And the charter school. I know that consortiums are popular, and being in Washington County, something to look at is maybe doing a consortium with the Osages and or Cherokees, who knows. But that's just some ideas I throw out there. And I'm sure there are people in my tribe who know more about that than I do. We had a good constructive meeting about child support this afternoon. I'm sure Councilor Jennifer told you a lot about that. It was good. Child support continues marching down the road. And like I said, it is going to happen. But it's a deal where we have to stay tuned. That's all. So, anyway, do the other judges have anything to add or say? Okay. I guess that's about it. And we appreciate the council sending this to Sovereignty Symposium. Worthwhile as always, and thanks. Appreciate it.
We appreciate the interest and the dedication our judges have for attending such things.
Yes. So I know there were several tracks there, so whether you guys want to say anything anymore, got anything to add? Okay. Thank you.
I would like to comment, and Curtis, Chet, and I attended Thursday afternoon. We attended the session on Office of Trust Fund Management Reform, and that was one of the last ones, and we definitely went to be noticed. Our name is in the record for having spoke up, and on Friday morning, the appointed commission held like an open hearing asking for information. Curtis gave a very good verbal outline of the situation that we're in, and I just wanted to thank him personally because with that, we are definitely noted in the record and our concerns are noted, and he gave a very good presentation.
Thank you, Curtis.
I would certainly like to say the same thing, which was well said about Vernon. We did extract what I consider to be more or less a promise to help us out of one of the commissioners, Stacy Leeds. And Curtis did do an excellent job of presenting our case at the hearing. Thank you, Curtis.
You're welcome. And also, we owe them a written summary, and that will go out this week. As long as we get it in the next 10 days or so, it'll go into the record. But this has to do with our unfinished trust fund settlement issues, which if we're successful during this year, could not only release $300,000 to the tribe, but then we've got almost another $500,000 in penalties for mismanagement of trust funds. And that's where we have to work with our local congressional delegation to see if we can get this money broken loose. But we desperately need these funds, and I think it was worth the trip down there
Definitely.
to make our case and to get our name and our tribal presence out there in front of everyone else.
So are you the one that's going to write this?
Yes.
Summary? Oh, okay.
I've been working with Tom Peckham, and
Okay.
we'll get it all written and submitted, but I'll have you all look at it. Actually, it needs to come under the chief's signature when we submit it.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Anything else we need to be discussing?
Oh, Chief, I would ask that you remind everyone, this Saturday, June 15th, is the deadline for the Delaware Indian News.
Yes.
And we have got to get our stuff in there. We can't be waiting around till the 29th and expect to get an issue out on time, and especially if there's trust board issues that you need to get out to